We kick this off, I suppose.
6, 7.
Yep.
Okay, all right.
Okay, you ready to go? Right. Good evening. I call the May 21st, 2024 meeting of Sarpy County Planning Commission to order. Ms. Timby, would you please call the roll?
Ackley,
Here.
Huddleston,
Here.
Dembinski,
Here.
Giff,
Here.
Renach,
Here.
Van Wielden,
Here.
Weiss,
Here.
Preston, Matea, Whitfield. We have a quorum.
Thank you. I invite you now to join me in the reciting of the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is a public meeting subject to the Nebraska Open Meetings Act. A current copy of the law is located on the north wall of this room. Please feel free to review the law before making any comments. I'd like to do an introduction of the planning staff and legal counsel. Don Simon, Planning Director. Kelly Jake, Planning Coordinator. Julie Ogden of JEO, Planning Department Consultant. Kayla Hathcote, Deputy County Attorney. Lisa Timby, Permit Technician. And Jose Garcia, our IT Support Specialist. The first order of business is to approve the minutes from the prior meeting. At this time, I entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes of December 19, 2023.
Motion to approve is written. Second.
Please vote.
That was saying that before, did you? That was me the second.
Oh, it was. Oh, okay. So, all right.
Caleb wasn't here.
Okay.
Yeah, I
we'll
wasn't here,
change
so
that.
I
It's Ryan Weiss, seconded. So right down here. We'll change it to after we move. Weiss is seconded. Okay. You want to say please? Abstain. See who they are. Absent who they are. Motion carried.
Yeas, 5. Abstained, Dembinski, Van Wielden. Absent, Whitfield, Matea, Preston.
Motion carries.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the public hearing portion of the meeting. Each agenda item will adhere to the following format as detailed in the Sarpy County Planning Commission's bylaws. The planning staff will introduce and briefly explain the agenda item. The applicant or the applicant's representative will be given 5 minutes to provide information about the project to the Commission. After the applicant's presentation, I'll open the floor to public comment. Please keep your comments relevant to the agenda item, and to keep the meeting moving, please avoid repeating what others have said. Once all parties that wish to speak have done so, I'll close the public comment portion of the agenda item. The applicant or the applicant's representative can respond to any questions or concerns raised and rebut any comments. Next, I'll close the public hearing and the members of the Planning Commission will discuss the agenda item. During this discussion, the commissioners may ask questions of anyone involved in the project. There is no requirement for rebuttal from others. There is also no time limit for this discussion. The first item on tonight's regular agenda is a public hearing recommendation for Martin Marietta Materials, as they have submitted an application for consideration for a special use permit in the AG Agricultural Farming District to operate a sand and gravel mining operation on the following 7 parcels. Parcel 1, 01609105. Parcel 2, 01609067. Parcel 3, 010382488. Parcel 4, 010382186. Parcel 5, 010382496. Parcel 6, 0104-05909, and Parcel 7, 0104-05631 in Sarpy County, Nebraska, generally located southeast of South 111th Street and Mitchell Road.
Good evening, Planning Commission members. Julie Ogden, JEO Consulting, consultant for the Planning Department. I will go ahead and provide the overall vicinity map for your guys' review. See if I can zoom that out so you can see everything here. As noted, the site is southeast of 111th and Mitchell Road. There is an existing, let's start with it is currently zoned agricultural with floodplain and conservation district overlays on it currently. The future land use designation for these parcels is residential estates. In May of 2002, a conditional or special use permit for the mining operations of rock was granted to Martin Marietta, and that's the operations you see here on the aerial. In April of 2017, and then amended in October of 2020, or September of 2019, excuse me, Schmidt Farms was approved for a special use permit for the camping recreation use. They currently are allowed to have up to 100 sites, RV pads on that. With that condition or special use permit, they were required, the amendment, they were required to construct a secondary road access out to Whitney Road. In October of 21, Martin Marietta came before this Planning Commission with this special use permit to do sand and gravel mining down mostly within this parcel to expand the lake on the Schmidt Farms property. As part of the plan for that, some of the spoils will be used to construct that road that was required as part of the Schmidt Farms conditional or special use permit. The October 2021 special use permit was recommended by the commission at that time to the county board. However, it was not ever heard at the county board because the road agreement that was required as a condition was not ready to go until today. It had been negotiated between the county and Martin Marietta. Since then, as I understand it, that has been prepared. It is out for signatures by all parties. And is now should no longer be an issue with the current permit. Since it had been 3 years, it was beneficial to restart the whole process, and we asked Martin Marietta to reapply for their special use permit to do the mining operations. They do have a lease executed with Schmidt Farms for the mining and the access, and that lease goes through 2041. It was included in your packets if you had the interest of reading it. This project will be phased, and let's see, let me pull up so here is the overall site map for the process. The access for people obtaining sand and gravel clients, gotta I don't know, I couldn't think that word, will be off of 108th and Mitchell Road. They will come down, follow the path, pick up, and then head back out to that same access. The mining operations will be down here on the lake. They will stockpile here in the interim. At some future point, they're planning to construct a process to get it up the hill so the trucks don't always have to go down. That will not be in place day one, but will be eventually in place. So they're going to start and just kind of work from east to west with the gravel mining. As part of phase one, when they remove the topsoil and stockpile that, that is what will be used to construct the road for Schmid Farms, but it will also be used by Martin Marietta as well during their operations. So it'll be an emergency access to begin with for Schmid Farms only. Their hours of operation as per their site or their plan would be from April to October. The general dates where Schmid Farms will be able to operate is from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. When the winter months start, so November to March 31st, they do say that there could be the potential for additional hours to mine those operations because there will not be any residents at Schmid Farms as per their permit. There will be no mining operations when the pond is frozen over. Sales hours will be limited from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, with some Saturdays during the seasonally as needed. There is, and I have mentioned that the road agreement has been prepared and is in the process of being signed by Martin Marietta, as I understand it. We have received comments from Sarpy County Public Works and Papillion Fire. The Papillion Fire comments were from the original application, but still are applicable, as their request was to make sure there was enough turnaround space for the fire truck should it be needed on the site. And based on their path that we're seeing here, that is available now. Sarpy County Public Works comments were related to the 108th Street and the road agreement that is now in place. Wanted to show you one more map. So this helps you see a little bit better where the access road will be built. That is the green line here. And you can see how the phasing and the plans work across the area on Schmid Farms. Staff is recommending approval of the special use permit tonight, and we do not have any conditions other than that they address all comments from the fire and public works, which the road agreement is in place. So, any questions of me at this time?
When do you think that agreement will be signed then?
It has been sent, Kayla, it has been sent to Martin Marietta.
Yeah, the road agreement is finalized, so we just have to put it before the county board, which we can do in conjunction with this when it goes forward. It's already done. It just needs to go to be finalized by county board.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Does the applicant have a representative that would address the board? Please state your name and address as well, please.
Good evening, Honorable Chair and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Neil Grant with Martin Marietta Materials. The address is 11252 Aurora Avenue in Des Moines, Iowa. Also with me this evening is Ray Johnson, our General Manager. Thanks to staff for the presentation. They covered a lot of things, so I'll try to be brief, but a couple of points to make. I don't know, maybe some of you were on the board a couple of years ago. As it was pointed out, we came to the board in October of 2021, and then it was only recently that we've reached agreement on the road agreement terms. But this proposal is essentially the same as the proposal that came before this board 3 years ago. The one difference I would like to point out, and I will put it on your screen. Initially, we had a single plant site on the south side of the property, approximately where my hand is located. Since that time, we've we're going to try to make efforts to have a second plant site that's farther away from our neighbors. And that's where this concept of a second plant site inside the quarry has come about. It's going to take some additional equipment, so we're not sure like how quickly we might be able to use that, but we wanted to make sure that our permit included both locations in the event that we are able to do that in the future. Again, we think that will have less impact on the neighbors, and we wanted to have it covered by this application. So that's really the only change from the last time. The sand and gravel operation is technically separate from the limestone quarry, but we're utilizing shared infrastructure as it was explained. The scale and scale house here on the north end, the entrance, and then this stockpile yard in the middle is a shared resource. Secondary access has been covered. So just a quick comment on that. When the initial overburden is removed, we will make this connection from the end of the campground out to Whitney. These aren't like actual roads that are going to be built. What it's intended to signify is as the mining progresses westerly, we have an access road around the entire lake for placement of the dredge anchors. And so every year as we expand, that road just kind of moves with it. And it's not an improved road, but it is certainly passable. And so there will always be the way for someone to come in. If you know, the primary emergency access remains 99th Street, but should there be an incident there, this provides a second way in to provide emergency access, which is obviously important, and we're happy to provide that through our proposal. When discussing the hours of operation, I just want to make it clear, there's the potential for 24/7 operations, but that is not the intent. This is a portable location. We'll have a plant on this property for approximately 1 to 3 months each year. The plant services a number of sites, so it comes in, puts up enough sand for the entire year, and then leaves. And so the only thing that will continue for the balance of the year is the loading and sale of the material to our customers. The existing Schmid Farms lake is only, I think I've been told it's like 15 or 20 feet deep, and there should be sand down to a depth of 60 feet. We're not certain that we can go back and dredge that deeper, but there may very well be an opportunity to do so. We would like to do so. Schmid Farms would like us to do that, but it wouldn't be a good idea to commingle our mining activity with our recreation activities. And so when their campground season is over, there's an opportunity to go in and try to mine some of that. And that's why it's a body of water, we float a dredge in there, and when it ices over, we can't mine. And so the reason for the extended hours during that particular time of year when there are no campers around is that would allow us to get in and maybe get a full year's production out in a very abbreviated, maybe 4 weeks instead of 2 months, because we would have the opportunity to operate longer hours when there weren't people around. So that's how that would work. But to be clear, the plant will not be there year-round. We will not be producing 24 hours a day, perhaps ever. But we'd like the opportunity to do so if that's how it works out best to limit our impact on the neighbors, to get in and get out quickly. It wasn't stated, it was in the staff report, but it wasn't mentioned that there's approximately 9 to 12 years of reserves here. We'll start on the west side of the existing Schmid Farms pond, and we'll go west. There's also a small area on the north side of Whitney Road on the Martin Marietta property here. We call that Phase 2. So Phase 1A is west of the existing lake. Phase 1B is if there's an opportunity to go back into the existing lake and dredge that deeper, we call that Phase 1B. And then Phase 2 is across the road. We will not mine through Whitney Road. Whitney Road will remain intact. It'll provide that secondary access to the campground. Another important point to make, it's included in our proposal, but wasn't mentioned yet this evening. Well, I guess it was in that we're using the existing quarry infrastructure, but when this operation began as a rock crushing operation years ago, the plant site was down here and all of the customers came in and out of Whitney. We relocated it with that 2002 permit up to Mitchell and 108th, and we have committed that all of the customer traffic for the sand plant will go through the existing quarry operation and will not go down 111th and Whitney. again, to try to help limit the impact on the neighborhood. And then I guess just from a post-mining standpoint, by expanding the lake, that'll allow for future campground expansion as well. There's high demand for that particular use. And I guess with that, I will open it up if the board has any questions, or I know we'll also need to take comments from the public. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now open the hearing to the public. I would invite you to give your input on the proposed action.
Good evening. My name's Robert Mixon, address 10515 Whitney Road. I guess I'm going to be right in the middle of all this, so that's kind of why I'm here. I don't know if I can show you here. So where the mining's going to be here, and then across the street, I had just purchased this ground right here. And I had just closed on this in February. I was not aware at the time that this was a proposed project coming up, because this probably would have made me think twice about buying this. I had just went down to Sarpy County last week. My building permit was approved, so I'm kind of stuck here now. I got a house I'm building here. I'm gonna probably start on the footings next week. So I guess my big concerns on this project is the noise, because as Neo had indicated, the campsite closes October 1st to April. Well, I'm gonna still be living there full time. So I had just got a call from Neo this afternoon around 4 o'clock, so we had just kind of briefly talked about this. I guess right now, you know, as I'm there, they are operating up on this hill. They have several trucks, and I guess the biggest issue I have is the backup alarms on the machines. You know, we're in the spring and going in the summer. We have a south wind. We have leaves on the trees. Helps block noise. Winter, we don't have that. Going to have north winds, which amplifies that sound. And then if, you know, we have a mining operation down here closer to where I'm at, I don't have a hill. I don't have trees blocking no noise. So I guess my conversation with Neo is they're looking at maybe updating their backup alarms to a white noise, which makes it a little bit easier to deal with. They also talked about putting up a berm up along my property line over here and putting in maybe some trees for some noise. Because with this being temporary, 10, 15 years might be temporary, but I guess when you're living there, that's not temporary. That's a long time. So I guess we can do some trees or a berm and let that grow up by the time they get to their mining operation, which is across the street from me. You know, I guess the hopefully maybe deter some noise. So, and then the other big thing was traffic down this road, but talking to them, they were gonna bring everything up here on top, so I guess that's not much of a concern. But I guess talking with Martin Marietta, if they're willing to put some stuff in writing for me and, you know, help with the noise, that's kind of my biggest issue with this. Thank you.
Okay. How do I switch that back to this? Oh, there. Do I have only so much time?
Pardon?
Do I only have so much time? Or how's it
You're
work?
fine. If you'll sign in though, the sheet below,
Is there a sheet, a sign-in sheet under, oh, Neil, get going. Come on, Neil.
Is there any way to zoom in this in?
I don't know.
Oh, yeah, up the top.
Or there's the plus minus sign.
Yeah.
There you go. Do you want it more than that? You just use
That's
these.
fine.
And yeah, I'll take it.
Okay, I'm Nathan Chavez. I live at 16104 Schmid Drive. So I'm right here. So I'm for as far as I know, I think I'm pretty sure, but I'm the only house that backs up to Martin Marietta that's not divided by a road, like Mitchell, Whitney, 111th. This house right here, my old neighbor, they bought that. So we'll get into that here. I guess my main concerns are, and I don't think Martin Marietta is evil by any means. I understand why we need aggregate. But so 8 months out of the year, we get a southeast wind. Okay, so obviously when they're crushing rock down here, they're limestone, it's blowing right at my house. And then it's going to be increased truck traffic because obviously they're going to use the scale. So here's the office. They come up like this and they go right here. Scale on, go out, and then 108 down. So basically it's in, down by my house. I'd say daily, I mean, I've seen trucks backed up all the way down to here. And so it's a long, long way. So I would say in the hundreds, maybe 1,000 trucks a day. So by the time you start doing sand, is it going to turn it into thousands or 5,000s? Or, you know, a lot more traffic, obviously. And let's see here. I'm sure the mining problem with the sand, but with the limestone, obviously there's explosives involved. Our house gets rattled enough. Let's see here. I know they mentioned something about their hours. I'm sure when they got their permits for the limestone operation, they probably sat up here and talked about hours, but about a year ago, maybe 18 months, 2 years tops, they must have ran out of limestone in one certain area, and they must have needed to do a 24/7 operation to get a new hole opened up. So they went 24/7 for months. They had spotlights right here with generators running continuously. The lights were shining in our backyard, and you know, it's picture being in a residential area and someone taking their lights and basically going right into your front window. It's similar to that, but it's not, you know. So the hours, I would question that. And then, you know, we have to live there 24/7. So that's that. And then the other thing that I'm really concerned about that just popped up. So Neil has been contacting me and the people that had owned this house. So it's literally just boom, boom, and wanting to buy us out because they can only do their explosives, from what I understand, so close to residents, so close to homes. And I don't know, he described it, but they must have probes in the ground, and however the vibration spreads through the earth, they can only get so close to residents, okay? But our pictures are already shaking. My neighbor and I both said no, because they were a few years out from retiring or whatnot. And I originally talked to them about me buying. Well then, let's see, I think we're going this September or October will be 18 months ago or 20 months ago, let's say. My neighbor's well dried up all the way. So they were getting totes and going to the fire department and filling them up and putting them into their cistern so they could supply their home. Well, because they got so desperate, because they had well companies come out, they decided to go ahead and sell this house to Martin Marietta. So I don't know if I can't zoom this in, but let's just say, so it's hard to show you what this is. Can I zoom
You
this
hit
in?
that plus button on the top, sir. That should,
Sorry, I'm not techie. Okay, there you go. Sorry. Okay, I can figure it out from here. So let me just show you something, and I don't know if it's. I know, I understand there's revenue and tax and stuff like that involved, but basically, right. Well, you can see this little dark spot right here where the hand is. Okay. So there, or my neighbor's old well was right where this hand is. And where my well is right here. So we're talking like probably triple the length of this room. So I'm wondering if ultimately through the digging process, did the aquifer get interrupted and the water figured out how to get through the veins of the water or through the ground and drain out into the limestone pit that they have. Because if you look up the Nebraska depth of the aquifer, it's anywhere from 0 to like 450 feet. Okay, so depending on where you're drilling. So what my fear is, because they wanted the property, so they kind of got lucky. Because the people had their hands tied. They were going to get market value, but the house wasn't worth anything without the well. You see what I'm saying? So what my fear is what if mine drains out? You know, then I'm forced to sell to them. And my wife and I want to live there. We live there for a reason. You know, it's a lifestyle thing. I mean, you know how big Sarpy County's getting. So I wanted to bring that up. It's just weird that happened. Let's see here. So, okay. So I'm assuming, because I've tried to get stuff done in town and city, in city Papillion, because I have rental property, but and it never goes anywhere. But my proposal, if this gets, when you pass it, is basically Martin Marietta to put some sort of a tree block right here, okay? Maybe on my side or their side. That'll help with decrease of wind, noise, filtering the dust. One other thing I'll bring up, I put a new roof on my house. My house is full electric. There was a chimney. It leaked through the chimney. I didn't need the chimney. So I decided, when we're tearing the shingles off, I'm just gonna knock the chimney off into the attic, and then we'll shingle right over, put plywood in and shingle right over that spot. Well, then the amount of dust that was in that chimney chute was amazing, but the shocking one was our laundry's upstairs. When we were redoing the vent coming out of the roof, it's all like stainless steel or aluminum. It's not the flex pipe. But I had to crawl in the attic and take it apart in order to get the new vent put on to shingle over, and we're talking about a 3-foot tube, 4 inches wide, and you could lift it, like a 1-year-old could lift it. Mine was so full of limestone dust that when you heat, when you do your laundry, there's a humidity, and the humidity's going out, so moisture is naturally hitting dust from the limestone, and the walls, and this pipe was like super heavy. So that's another thing. And then besides that, when it's dry and we don't get 12 inches of rain in 1 month, my yard looks like there's cotton, like a cotton field. It's just pure dust. So I guess my main concern is the increase in truck traffic, obviously, because we all know it's going to come by my house. And so my biggest thing would be just some sort of wind block, dust block, noise blocker. And then they do have tanker trucks. So down here in front of their office, right here, okay, is where they fill up their water. And then the guy goes and sprays the road, but they're not doing it enough. I consider myself a little bit of a country boy, so normal gravel road traffic, and then picking season, is natural dust, but when you're living in a mine, the dust is way different than just gravel road dust. So that's pretty much all I have. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to make a comment?
No.
Then I'll close the public hearing portion. If there are is there any discussion from the commissioners?
Yeah, if we could have the Martin Marietta representative come back up.
Trying to say this time.
So a couple things. Educate me on where you start picking up on Schmidt Farms there, the lake to the east, as you guys are heading west. Are you trucking that sand up to the north? Are you going to put a conveyor system in? How are you getting that, I guess, across Whitney Road up to the pad above where you plan to process it?
And there's probably two different possibilities, and that's why we have the second plant site. The initial plan was to set a portable plant here. The dredge would be in the lake. The dredge will pump to the processing plant. Most of the product stockpiles will be around the plant. And then we would convey concrete sand up the hill and stockpile that here. That would require customers to come down to be loaded with products other than concrete sand. So we've shown a haul road for customers here. We've got an internal haul road for our trucks on this side. It's too steep for a customer truck presently, and we prefer not to intermingle them, but we would either modify this one to make it a flatter slope or construct the one that's shown here. So the customer trucks would enter, and they would either load with concrete sand here or come down to the lower plant site to load with other products. If and when we're using the second plant site, we would still dredge, and we would dredge to either a booster pump or and then pump it all the way up the hill into the quarry, and the plant would sit here and all of the products would remain here. Another possible alternative would be setting a dewatering wheel in the lower plant site, pump from the dredge to the dewatering wheel, the water returns to the pond, the dried sand that can then be run on a conveyor belt up to the hill, and then it would run through the plant at that point. So it'll be one or the other, depending upon which equipment is in use.
So in either of those scenarios, you're not using Whitney Road to move dirt between.
The customer trucks will not go down Whitney Road. We will, when we do our annual stripping, so we'll remove the overburden to expose the sand. The grading crew will use Whitney to enter, do their work, and then exit. And then when the plant comes in, it would use Whitney again once to enter and once to exit. And then we might have a service pickup truck, a plant manager and a pickup truck. There would be, smaller vehicle access, but the customer trucks will be kept inside the quarry.
Okay. And you heard Mr. Mixon come up. I guess, have you reached an agreement in terms of putting some berming there on the west side of your property, east of his property?
Sure. So we are already planning to put a berm around the entire lake. In fact, the south side of the north one, there's really no need along the bluff, and around the entire Schmidt Farms property. It serves a couple of functions. It's a place to store topsoil. It's a safety barrier between the lake to keep people from falling in. So we were already putting one there. What we've talked about just this evening was possibly planting some trees in addition to the berm there. We can possibly reevaluate the height. Unfortunately, his property was low and he's raised it to get out of the floodplain. So he's likely going to look over our berm as it's presently designed. So maybe there's some opportunity to increase the height there. Certainly some opportunity to put some, evergreen trees there. One of the other things that we haven't reached agreement, because this really just came up recently, but what we have reached agreement on is a commitment to work together to try to find some mutually agreeable solutions. And there may be an opportunity to put a berm. A lot of what he hears is the existing operation. Of course, that's not what we're here to talk about tonight. We're talking about the future sand and gravel mining. But nevertheless, he's our neighbor, and we want to be a good neighbor. And so what we're looking at is things that we can do to our existing operation to try to mitigate the impacts on his property. And so there may be an opportunity to build a berm up on the quarry property, for example. Don't know for sure. We need to look into that, make sure that the elevations are right. But if there's a way that we could do something there that could help, we would like to do that. We also discussed the white noise alarms. When he brought that up, I actually called our plant manager immediately and we had that conversation. We tried to do that about 10 years ago. The difficulty we had is they're not as loud as the buzzers or the beeping ones. And so in our sales yard, our yard loaders that load customer trucks do have white noise backup alarms on them, and they're functional. The difficulty we had when we tried to put it on our production equipment is the noise from the plant and the noise from the haul trucks and the noise from those, what we call pit loaders. The ambient sound level is already a little bit higher, and you can't hear the white noise backup alarm over that ambient sound level. So it really didn't provide a safe environment for our employees, and we're strictly regulated by the Mine Safety and Health Administration. Now, that's been quite a while. So we're going to go back out and look and see, are there other newer solutions that we're not aware of that might help address that. We also discussed the possibility of just changing the hours. Maybe we can add the broadband, or it's white noise, they're also known as broadband. There may be some opportunities to use them at different hours when he's home as opposed to when he's not. So the agreement we've reached is we absolutely want to work together to try to find some way to make this better for him, but we just don't have those details worked out yet. I'd like to think that we've got enough time to work through that before we get on the county board's agenda. Let's see what else here. Yeah, we talked about the berms and the trees and the backup alarms. The other thing that I was able to inform Mr. Nixon about is that he's new to the property, as he mentioned. He did not know that the quarry, the rock crushing operation, is also portable, just like the sand plant. It's there roughly 2 to 4 months each year. Again, the sand plant will likely be there 1 to 3 months. We're moving out next week, and we won't be back until the very end of the year. So he was, of course, pleased to hear that, but his concerns are still valid, and we're going to continue to work with him to try to address them when we are producing. Did you have more questions, Mr. Ackley, or because I've got some comments on Mr. Chavez?
Yeah, Mr. Chavez, if you can maybe respond to some of his comments, and maybe that'll bring more questions or comments from us as well.
Sure. He made the comment about increased truck traffic. We've actually been trying to scale back the limestone traffic. The operation is nearing the end of its reserves, and so we've been trying to shift sales to other locations because this plant was not designed for all of the growth and development that's going on in your county. And it's been a real challenge for us to meet the demand that's going on locally with the warehouses and the data centers and whatnot have really put a strain on our operation. So we've operated and burn through our reserves much faster than we anticipated. And so we're trying to shift some of those sales to extend the life, to get it back to a level that, quite frankly, it was better suited to operate at. And so the thought is, yes, we will be adding some sand and gravel sales. We're hoping to get those limestone sales down. So it doesn't necessarily need, it won't necessarily result in a significant increase in traffic. And obviously, at a certain point, we will run out of limestone reserves, and that traffic will go away, and it'll just be the remaining sand and gravel traffic. There was an incident with a contract grading company with the growth and development that I've mentioned. Over the last couple of years, we've let contracts and then had to go back and let additional contracts. I think it was in 2019 or 2020, we actually had to let 4 separate contracts for grading at this operation, which was very frustrating for us because you get a better price based on the number of yards you're going to move. And so just another data center came down the pipeline, another warehouse came down the pipeline, and we just had greater and greater demand that we didn't anticipate. And so that's been a challenge, and we did have a grading contractor that did operate 24/7 for a period of time removing dirt, which obviously was not ideal, but he is correct about that. With regards to the conversations about buying them out, yes, I contacted Clarence, the neighbor to the south, and we did later, as Nathan pointed out, purchase that house. I've also spoken with Nathan. It's not about the wells, and it's not about the blast vibration. We do use seismographs. There are very strict guidelines on blast vibration around residences, and we stay within them. And we use those seismographs to monitor that vibration to make sure that we stay within them. We have, as I mentioned, we're running out of reserves. There's a lot of additional limestone to the east, and so we had been talking to that property owner about the possibility of buying or leasing property to the east and potentially extending the life of this operation instead of having to up and move farther away, which by moving farther away, there's tremendous growth and demand in Sarpy County. All the concrete, all the asphalt uses aggregate. And so the farther away your source of aggregate becomes, the higher, there's more trucks on the road carrying it, and then it adds to the cost because the rock is heavy and relatively inexpensive. The cost of transportation, the farther away you go, becomes relatively significant. So ideally, we'd like to stay here. So we were having conversations with the neighbor, and those 2 houses are kind of right between us and that property. So we did. We reached out to see if they had any interest in selling. And he's correct, neither of them did. Clarence later did encounter water issues. We don't believe it's due to the quarry. That it was looked into. It was in the middle of a significant drought, which is hard to imagine with all the rain we've had lately. But this particular aquifer, if you were to look it up on the website that monitors, it was considered a severe drought. It was the most extreme level of drought that they track. And water is difficult to come by in this area. Our well for our scale house, we were not able to get water in this location, and our well is actually down here. No, that's a power pole. It's somewhere along this west side. So we had to go almost a half a mile away and run a pipe to get water up there. So there are known water issues here. Clarence did experience a water issue. And we were still interested in his property because we feel that's a potential gateway to future reserves. So we did agree to pay him full market value for his property. And our offer still stands to Nathan, and I understand he's not interested in seeing it, and we certainly respect that. With regards to Nathan's comments about dust and trees, I think we can commit to make some improvements there. Again, these are not directly related to the sand plant, but because the sand plant traffic will run along that Hall Road, it's certainly, there's a connection. And so I think we could agree to some conditions of approval of our sand plant special use permit, that we would plant trees along that property line in an effort to further screen Mr. Chavez from dust. And we would also commit to applying like calcium chloride or other dust palliative along that diagonal section that is really right in the line with the wind, as he pointed out, in an effort to try to help with that. So we would agree to both of those as conditions of approval. And again, with regard to Mr. Mixon, I would just like some time to continue to work through that. It's pretty easy to say, hey, we can plant trees or we can treat this segment of road. We're going to need to evaluate, would a berm even be effective? I don't want to commit to putting a berm if we later determine it isn't helpful. So we just need a little time to work that out. And again, we've agreed to do that before the next meeting. That's what I had for my comments. So any other questions from the board?
So one question, and I maybe missed it here, but I thought you were initially talking about is it limestone that's maybe drying up where you're at, and yet at the same time, is it going north and east that there would be more reserves?
Sorry.
Tell me that part again.
We are, the area that we were mining limestone from is right here. And so the site was mostly in this location back in 2002. I was here, I permitted all of these additional reserves in 2002. And as you can see, we've mined through everything here, here, and we're now right here. So all that's left at the quarry presently is right here.
And are there any restrictions on doing that based upon distance to the house?
No, there was a 300-foot setback from the property line along the houses, which is pretty much where we're at right here. And of course, we're getting a little farther away as we move north because of our own Hall Road. So we are permitted to mine all of that. And again, we monitor the blast vibration and we can alter the shot. There's a variety of different parameters in the shot design. We use a third-party explosives engineering firm to manage all of our blasting for us. And they monitor those levels and they adjust the shot to make sure that we maintain safe vibration levels. So I'm not concerned about our ability to mine out the rest of this without causing damage. But what we would, the ideal place to expand the operation would be easterly. Let me zoom out. Because there's a large open area to the east. So we've had some conversations. They're not presently interested in selling, and if they don't, and we run out of material, we'll likely have to move elsewhere. But it's, as you can imagine, it's difficult to open new mining operations. And so if you've got the opportunity to continue an existing one by just moving to the adjacent property without, we would obviously mine through our Hall Road, so that would need to be relocated, but there aren't public roads, and that's why we had an interest in buying those two residences as well, because they would be even more so surrounded by a rock quarry than they are even today.
Thank you.
I got one question. So with regard to the road agreement with the county, is that have to do with improving 108th Street from Mitchell Road up to Platteview?
Correct. Okay. It covers, that's the bulk of it. It also covers alternate routes during the construction or reconstruction of that road. But yes, the bulk of it is related to 108th.
Thank you.
And Kayla was correct. We have reached agreement on all of the terms of that.
Okay.
Question for Mr. Simon or Ms. Hathcote, I guess, in terms of the special use permit and the current language we have in there. If a motion were made to make it also conditional upon having a berm with trees adjacent to Mr. Mixon's land, having, whether there's a berm or just trees, I'll leave that to Mr. Chavez and Martin Marietta to work out, but again, a condition for that. Do you know what the current dust mitigation requirements are, if that's got to be increased for timing. Again, it sounds like we've got lots of dust going on, if that's something we have to monitor more, or if there's more frequent application.
I have no idea.
Do you feel that's something we can work out between now and county board, whether that's in the next month or in the next 2 months, so that if we add some conditions to this permit, that it can move along from us? And
We can definitely look into it and bring it to the county board, as a condition, and see what they want to do with that. I could look to see what the requirements are if you want to include it in your motion.
do you know, sir, in terms of what your current, I imagine there's some dust mitigation in your current permit, if that's based on,
We routinely use water trucks on the roads and then a wet suppression at the plant. And we do operate that. It's unfortunate that that road is in such close proximity to those houses, and I think that is a contributing factor. And I think Nathan's idea about the screen of trees, I think, would certainly help. And again, we would agree to do that. It's hard to put a number of how many trees it would take. We would want to make sure it was effective, of course, but
are there other dust mitigation techniques you've seen in the mining industry besides watering the roads or using certain chemicals or planting trees?
from a Hall Road perspective, which is, I think, the primary source that we're dealing with here, water and dust palliatives are the primary ways.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody else have a question? Okay, if there's no further discussion, I will ask for a motion.
If there's no discussion, I'd be prepared to make a motion. I'd make a recommendation to approve of this special use permit in the AAG Agricultural Farming District to allow the extraction and processing of sand and gravel on the 7 parcels that are named within this application. Contingent, however, on the following. Number 1, a road agreement needs to be signed by the applicant prior to going to the county board. Secondly, the applicant will meet with Mr. Mixon and work out a design for a berm on the west side of this property where the permit will be, which would be east of Mr. Mixon's property. Again, a berm with trees. Secondly, there would be trees placed on the east side of their property up adjacent to the boundary line with Mr. Chavez. Again, whether that's 1 row of trees or 2 rows of trees, I would ask Martin Marietta to get with Mr. Chavez to maybe discuss that. And then I would also ask that the county, Ms. Hathcote, if you can check what the current dust mitigation requirements are and see if there needs to be any potential revisions there based upon the amount of mitigation that gets done, or perhaps additional chemicals used as opposed to water. So I think that's 4 conditions I just wrote in there, if anybody's willing to sign off on that.
I would second that motion.
Please vote. Seven yeas, motion carried.
So again, I guess I'd encourage Mr. Mixon and Mr. Chavez and the Martin Marietta reps to get together, because ultimately Ms. Hathcote, I believe, has to be able to report to the county board when this goes forward what the agreements were, and they'll get in the special use permit. Thank you.
With that, we'll move on to the correspondent agenda. Do the commissioners have any comments or reports?
Oh, we're on number 2, election of officers.
Oh, sorry, I missed that.
It's okay.
My bad.
Call them, you can run, but you cannot hide.
Okay.
Okay, let's bring this up.
Mr. Brethnock, would you be willing to serve as the chairman of this fine commission for another year?
Yeah, I'll do that. I'm happy and honored to do it.
I would so nominate you for that position.
I would second that.
Any other nominations?
All
Talk.
in favor? All in favor?
Yeah, it's hard for the chair when he's being nominated to do that. We just want to do a voice vote?
We can? Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So, okay. Ackley,
Yes?
Huddleston,
Yes.
Dembinski,
Yes.
Giff,
Yes.
Van Wielden,
Yes.
Weiss.
Yep.
Motion carried. I didn't.
Okay, are there any nominations for vice chair?
What's your bucket left?
Don't be shy now, folks. Come on.
Anybody have a desire to be vice? Marty?
No, really not.
Heather? Come on, Heather. I have faith in you here.
If you help me out, I'll do it.
Deal.
Was that a nomination? Mr. Brethnock?
Yes, I nominate Heather as vice chair.
I would second that.
Okay. We'll do a voice vote again. Ackley,
Yes.
Huddleston,
Yes.
Giff,
Yes.
Bernard,
Yes.
Van Wielden,
Yes.
Weiss.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Way to go.
The next situation is a representative on the Board of Adjustment.
So right now, we have 2 members on the Board of Adjustment. We have moved Mr. Van Wielden and Matea up from there. We always have a Planning Commission member on the Board of Adjustment, so we don't meet often. We try not to meet at all, but we do need somebody from the Planning Commission to represent, from the Planning Commission to be on the Board of Adjustment.
Mr. Van Wielden, would you like to use all of that experience
I did it once.
to be the
so-
planning commission seat on there?
Sure, yeah, I'd be willing to do
That'd be
that.
great.
Yeah.
Super.
Thank you.
Is that a motion?
If we need a motion, that's a motion.
I second.
Sounds good.
Bernard, yep.
Get elected the first day.
You guys are trying to send me back.
We like you so much.
Hi, everybody.
Nice to meet you guys.
And I still have your nameplate, so.
There you go, perfect.
Works out great.
Save everyone taxes.
All right. The correspondence agenda?
Right, okay. Do any of the commissioners have any comments or reports at this time? When is our next planning report coming?
Okay, so since our last meeting in December, The following cases or applications were approved by the county board with your recommendation. The special use permit for the home occupation for the luxury restroom and shower trailer rental business, 180th and Flug Road for Grant and Aaron Stala, that was approved. Rezoning preliminary and final plat for the 3-lot subdivision southwest of 132nd and Buffalo for Culm Acres was approved. Text amendment, comp plan amendment, rezoning and special use permit for plain sand and gravel operation northeast of Highway 50 and Cornish Road was approved. And finally, the comp plan amendments, rezoning, preliminary plat, final plat for the 1-lot subdivision for the Papillion Water Treatment Plant. It went to the county board and was approved, and that's southwest of 87th and Platteview Road. So that brings us up to this meeting. The next meeting is June 18th. We do not have any applications at this time, but we've had a lot of activity the last month, so expect a busy fall.
Good.
Okay. Is there any other business for the board? I will then adjourn the meeting.